I've been getting a ton of people emailing me, flipping out that Hillary Clinton is suggesting that government intervene to deal with fake news, and that this would be a major free speech infringement, and that this is an example of how Hillary Clinton is an anti-First Amendment sort of authoritarian. And I think the first step in thinking about this is let's look at what Hillary Clinton actually did or did not say. This all stems from a speech she gave on Capitol Hill a few days ago. Here is what Hillary Clinton did say about fake news and foreign propaganda.
Let me just mention briefly one threat in particular that should concern all Americans, Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike, especially those who serve in our Congress. The epidemic of malicious fake news and false propaganda that flooded social media over the past year. It's now clear that so-called fake news can have real-world consequences. This isn't about politics or partisanship. Lives are at risk. Lives of ordinary people just trying to go about their days, to do their jobs, contribute to their communities. It's a danger that must be addressed, and addressed quickly. Bipartisan legislation is making its way through Congress to boost the government's response to foreign propaganda, and Silicon Valley is starting to grapple with the challenge and threat of fake news. It's imperative that leaders in both the private sector and the public sector step up to protect our democracy and innocent lives.
Okay, so she does say that there's legislation to deal with foreign propaganda, and that Silicon Valley, in other words, tech companies, are grappling with the challenge of fake news. From what she's saying, literally, she isn't saying something that suggests an infringement on free speech by the government. If the government were to designate what is fake news and what is not fake news, that would absolutely be disturbing from a First Amendment standpoint. When the government decides what's real news, what are the real news outlets, and which ones are not the real news outlets, we've seen in other countries, including, as I mentioned earlier, in Latin American countries over the last 50 years, how that can be incredibly problematic. There are a number of different things people are reacting to here. One is the sort of broader context of the speech that Hillary Clinton gave, giving some people the impression that she's blaming fake news for having lost the election. There's no doubt that fake news was a factor in the election, but there were many other elements at play, including the fact that Hillary Clinton was a candidate with huge baggage, as we've talked about. I don't think that that's the important aspect of this to focus on. Then we get to the fake news, Pat, and fake news is a major problem. I've read a ton of articles this week about fake news outlets and how they work, and it's all incredibly bogus and disturbing. But government getting involved in any sort of way where they are curating what is real and not real news, that is hugely problematic. But companies like Facebook saying stories from website X or Y are going to be disadvantaged in our algorithm to prevent them from going viral as easily. Those are decisions that companies like Facebook are absolutely able to make. Now, we may disagree with Facebook's editorial policy. We may disagree with the political bent of what a company like Facebook or Twitter might decide to prioritize or delegitimize through these algorithms, but that is absolutely something that they can do.
Yeah, I think there's this question of who should have the responsibility to sift through what is fake news and what is real news.
Right.
Because it definitely isn't the government. That would be an infringement on free speech. I think the websites have a big play in that. And I think it's also just a matter of personal responsibility, checking the sources and making sure what you see is valid.
And when we have such a lack of media literacy in this country where people can't even figure out the difference between opinion and news programming, or supposed opinion and supposed news programming, it's going to be really tough to fix the fake news issue. That's really the more relevant question to me. Given that the government should not be in charge of deciding in any way managing real versus fake news, how can we deal with the fake news epidemic? Algorithms on websites like Facebook, that is a really, really important thing. Using human curation by employees at a company like Facebook, that's a possibility. But of course, then you're going to be subject to the biases of the individuals that you select. And then, as you're suggesting, Pat, putting some onus on the users and saying, let's encourage users to flag and block false content. But I don't know. I think we've seen that users are hungry for certain types of headlines. And by definition, they are far less likely to flag articles that, real or fake, support their pre-existing biases as fake news because they want to believe that stuff.
It's not so much that the user should have an onus to flag and report fake news stories, but just to look at it themselves and see whether or not they believe it to be true. I think that's where it comes down to. And that's something that you used to not have to do as much, but now in 2016, it's something you have to do.
This is not something that's going to go away anytime soon. When I saw what Hillary Clinton said, I could see how you might interpret this as her saying the government needs to basically take control of what is real news and what isn't. I didn't see her say that. But I think that the entire fake news situation is very, very concerning, and it should not, I want to be clear, it should not be used as a way to limit speech. I want to be super clear about that.